And it's all right. And it's all good. Let's get it understood. It's the Urban Therapy with Soul Sun shows on Sunday, and we do it our way. It's okay. I know I'm a little late, but that's not really up for debate. But yo, wait. We gonna still catch up and do the things like, everything is gonna be all right. We do a daytime, not the night, on a Sunday, and on a Saturday. I know I missed, but I had something to do. It wasn't like I was trying to diss, but I'm here, and that's the important thing. And we gonna get this thing, bring the information in, and it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be okay. Sunday, our way. Let's play. What's going on, T? Carry right, morning, noon, and night. It's good to have you in my sights. And can't forget about my brother from another mother, Norris. He'll sit back, relax, and chill. You know the deal. And Carol Chamberlain, if I'm a Rita, I don't really have to say much more about Emily Dunlap. Is my what's going on, man? It's good to see y'all. Good to see y'all. It's good to be seen. And today, this morning, this Sunday, on the Urban Therapy with Sun show, we are talking about the kind of impact that Malcolm and Martin had. The kind of impact that Malcolm and Martin had, or the type of impact that Martin and Malcolm. It doesn't really matter. So what we want to talk about today is, those iconic figures, those civil rights and human rights leaders, those who really gave their lives in order to improve the condition of Black America. We want to look at the kind of impact that they really had, because historically, when we talk about those two, we get the impression that everybody was part of their movement and part of what they were doing back then. But when you actually go into your personal history and start asking your family members, your people, were they there? Did they participate? Do they even remember a lot of things? You may get some different answers than you may have expected. And I want to see if it's sort of like the Black Lives Matter and other movements to try to improve our condition are today. Everybody is not a part of those movements. So we have to ask ourselves, are we even a part of those movements? Are we down? Does it really sound? Will my people read that shit around in the history books 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years later? And so, I wasn't born during the time when Malcolm X was alive or Martin Luther King was alive. So I have to go on the accounts of the books that I've read, the documentaries that I've seen, the movies that I may have watched, and real life, descriptions and accounts of what life was like back then. So I got to asking myself, wait a minute. We may be part of these things now. We may be revolutionaries now, but there's a chance that we may be the first types of revolutionaries of this kind in our families. Our family history may not be fortified with a bunch of freedom fighters. We may be, our family histories may be fortified with just a bunch of people that was going along to get along, or actually maybe weren't even on the side of freedom, justice, and human rights. I didn't want to say equality. We want all that. But not all of our family members may have been fighting for their just due. Just like now. I know that many of y'all, all of y'all have family, friends, close family and friends, and people that who don't want to be part of none of this, fighting to get ours and marching and demonstrating and talking to people and going out there and doing things for the community. Many of us don't want no part of that. And we have to deal with that segment of our people, because in all reality, they are the majority. So what makes us think that the majority of people who were alive back then weren't on that same time? What makes us think that everybody was down with Malcolm X and Martin Luther King? What makes us think that? Well, we're gonna take a look at that today. Take a look at that today. Take. I might have to get the bongos out for this today. Okay, let's get about it. Urban Therapy with Sun 752, and this is the Urban Therapy with Sun show. We do this every single Sunday from 11 a.m. till around 12:30-ish. And the reason that we say 12:30-ish is because sometimes it gets so heated that we just have to do a little OT on a Sunday. And it is a Sunday, and it's kind of beautiful. Today it's a little overcast. It's not as sunny as we may want it to be, but it is a sunny one, and it is a goody one, and it's going to be a pretty warm, well, favorable spring type of day. So let's get into it. This is the show where adults come out and play with other adults. We laugh, we cry, we argue, fuss, and fight, go back and forth with each other, bust it up all crazy. We push each other on the swings, push each other up the sliding board. We play on the monkey bars in the sandbox and the merry-go-round and all of that. We take an introspective look into our own personality and see how we fit into this thing called the universe and figure out this thing called life. I'm your host Sun 752, aka Omar with the and if you can't say Omar with the well, then you just say Omar with the R. And it is the Urban Therapy with Sun show, and I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad that y'all are here with me too. Make sure that y'all hit that like button. Make sure that y'all share the show, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. We are talking about the kind of impact that Malcolm and Martin had. The kind of impact that Malcolm and Martin had. You know, I remember when I was about 8 years old, 9 years old, and I started to write poetry. I could make some words rhyme and stuff like that. And my teacher took notice of that because I wrote a poem about Martin Luther King. You know, I didn't know a whole lot about Martin Luther King, but I did know that even back then, 1978 and 79, the public schools in Philadelphia were off for MLK Day. It wasn't even a national holiday yet. It wasn't a holiday that everybody observed. But in my city, we did have Martin Luther King Day, and we celebrated that, and we had a day off. But I was going to Catholic school at the time. Not Catholic school, I'm sorry, Episcopal school. I was going to Episcopal school, which is the same thing. You know, you was taught by nuns, but all of our teachers weren't nuns. When we had to take religion class, it was taught by nuns. I don't know if any of y'all know about the Episcopal religion. It's supposed to be Protestant, but they do everything Catholic, and I mean everything. They even have priests. But their priests can get married. It's weird. It's weird. So they worship the Pope. I don't. Well, anyway, I was going to Episcopal school, so I wasn't off for Martin Luther King Day, and so I was writing this poem. You know, it was about Martin Luther King, and I was talking about how he worked for the freedom, of all people and stuff like that. What I wrote about what little I knew about him, and my teacher was very impressed by my ability to write poetry. She was really trying to tap into my brain and wonder why I was so mischievous, and I guess it's mischievous. Okay, whatever. She was trying to figure out why I wasn't good all the time. He was trying to pick my brain. Like, the boy is talented. He's not dumb in his classes. He can do the work, and he does the work. But he influences people to rebel, and he's a rebel. I was the type of, you can't tell me what to do, you ain't my mom type. I really used to. Anyway, so I remember thinking that I didn't really know that much about Martin Luther King, other than the fact that I knew that he was striving for, fighting for civil rights, or that's what I thought back at the time. Come to find out that Martin Luther King had nothing to do with the civil rights struggle. No, I shouldn't say that. He had everything to do with the civil rights struggle, but he was not the leader of the civil rights struggle. He was not. He was the face of it, but he was not the leader of the civil rights struggle. So what he was the leader of is the Southern Christian Leadership Council, SCLC, I believe. The Southern Christian Leadership Council. He was the leader of that. That was his organization. So when you think about that being his organization, you probably weren't a part of that organization if you weren't a Christian. Now, granted, most of the black people in America back then were Christians, but not all of them were. We had the Nation of Islam with Malcolm X, and Malcolm X broke off from the Nation of Islam and converted to Orthodox Islam. He was a Sunni Muslim, and that he died as a Sunni Muslim. So he learned some things about what he thought he knew later on in his life, close to his death. So if you don't go into depth about the history of iconic figures like a Malcolm X and a Martin Luther King, you will think that all black people were part of this movement, and that you were either on the Martin Luther King side, because there were thousands of them, right? There were. Or you were on the Malcolm X side. And I don't know how many of those there were, but I'll tell you this. Malcolm X was not a very charismatic and popular leader back then. You wouldn't know that now, but he's gained a lot of popularity and a lot of respect and a lot of notoriety after his passing. It wasn't like that when he was alive. He didn't get his flowers while he was alive. Martin Luther King pretty much got his flowers while he was alive. He was given the Nobel Peace Prize. He got his flowers. People knew him. People knew him. They loved him. They respected him. They gave him his just due while he was alive. And still, while he was alive, he didn't get everything mapped out as far as people's understanding of what he was fighting for while he was alive either. A lot of people associate Martin Luther King with the civil rights struggle. They didn't know that he spoke out against the Vietnam War. They don't tell you a lot of that. When you read about Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, even when it's MLK Day and they talk about, they keep you concentrated on his I Have a Dream speech. That wasn't even his most powerful speech, but it's the one they liked. It's the one they liked because it was a more of a liberal approach to trying to help his people keep from getting their heads bashed in and sprayed with fireman hoses and having dogs sicked on them and ran over by police horses and beaten by police and other white supremacists and racists being hanged and shit. He was just trying to exercise his right to be alive. What's going on, Queen Matu Mayini? Queen Matu Mayini, Queen Monica is all up in the house. Good to see me, some of you. Oh, yes, it's true. I do. But yeah. So a lot of people don't know that Martin Luther King had spoken out about the Vietnam War. He didn't feel that we should be over there fighting. People don't know that to this day, but he did. And it was things like that that actually led to his death, because he started getting more involved with political things and governmental things, not just trying to prevent the violence of white supremacists on his people. A lot of people didn't know that Martin Luther King spoke about reparations. See, Malcolm was educated, college educated. He had a degree. So he learned some shit in school that a lot of people hadn't learned. Not that black people didn't go to college back then, but it wasn't like that. You know, the majority of us graduated high school or not. We went out and got a job and lived our lives. But some of us were blessed enough to have the resources to be able to go to college and finish. And he was one of them. So he knew some shit and he understood some shit and he knew how to research. He knew how to read. He knew how to find out information that was relevant. And he knew how to relay it to the public. So when you see his "I Have a Dream" speech, you think that he spent all of his time doing that. You didn't know that he was speaking out about the Vietnam War and our role that we played in the Vietnam War and whether or not we should have our people over there fighting when we were getting our heads beat in here. How we over there fighting against that enemy when the real enemy was right here standing right in front of, right in our neighborhoods, snatching us out of our homes, discriminating against us in our public stores and jobs, basically hating us and mistreating us on a daily basis. And we're over there fighting against the enemy. By the way, many black people were communists back then. The Black Communist Party was big in the United States. I don't know if y'all ready to have that conversation, but I think we're going to touch on that a little bit. Today we're going to try to get a little knowledge popping off. But yeah, Martin Luther King talked about reparations. And he talked about us being Native Americans. He didn't talk about us coming from Africa. You will not find a speech from Martin Luther King talking about when we came from Africa. You got to pay attention to that. We didn't notice that even Malcolm X and the Nation of Islam, they spoke about when we were over in Africa and came here. Martin Luther King ain't talk about that shit. He acknowledged us as Native Americans, as indigenous. He described us being treated like foreigners in our own land. He didn't mean that this was just our own land because we were born in America, like that we came to America and we were born in America from this generation, just like white people are. That's not what he meant. He knew that we were indigenous to these lands, North America, South America, Central America, and the Caribbean. He knew it. Now, I don't know how much he knew, but he said these things in his speeches leading up to his death. But we don't get a chance to hear those things. So we're going to get into that impact, because when you think about the impact that Malcolm and Martin had, when we start going back and we start talking about that impact, if we start to really identify the type of impact they had, we have to acknowledge the fact that they didn't have the impact. They may not have had the kind of impact that they wanted to have. Martin Luther King got I have a dream when he was trying to push. I have some knowledge. Huh? The civil rights, the March on Washington wasn't supposed to be that kumbaya, sit-in, song singing and speech making and peaceful protest that it was, that it turned out to be. That's not what it was. That's not what he wanted. Martin Luther King acknowledged that maybe his nonviolent approach wasn't the best option in the long run. But he had to concede that had he done it another way, it probably would have gotten a whole lot more people killed besides himself and the ones who did get killed. I'm gonna have to put my glasses on so I can see. Why wear those glasses so I can see? What's that? B Cuba? B Cuba 007. Thanks for coming through. Appreciate you coming through on the Instagram side. And my big sis Robbie Robin Ming is here to do a thing. You know that she's something like a queen for a king. No doubt. See? All right. Okay. Carol Chamberlain says he was the most recognized Southern Christian Leadership Council. Yeah, that was his organization. He was the leader of that. But they don't, our history books and certain documentaries keep us from really concentrating on that. It's like, he was the leader of the civil rights movement. No, he was the face of the civil rights movement. He wasn't fighting for civil rights. And we should identify and understand exactly what a civil right is. For those of you who may not know, civil rights are just your ability to be able to take someone to court and sue for monetary damages and sometimes criminal damages if they should mistreat you or hurt you on the basis of your race, ethnic background, gender, sexual orientation. That's why you always hear LGBTQ members and other members of the gay community always talking about their place in the civil rights struggle. That's why. They're right. We don't like that they're right because we associate the civil rights struggle with Black people, which it was. But it's civil rights. And civil rights covers way more than just Black people. So once again, we got heisted for our just due because somebody else moved in and stole our shine. Even if they did it after the fact. What's going on, Rita Reds? Rita, what's up, Rita? What's going on? Good to see me some you. And also Queen Matu Mayini. Queen Matu Mayini. Monica Davis is all up in the house. It's good to see. Sister, see me some you. So we talking about the kind of impact that Malcolm and Martin had. Many of us think we know what kind of impact that they had. And I don't deny that they had an impact, but if they didn't have the type of impact that they were actually trying to have, not in terms of popularity, but in terms of information, in terms of the things that will actually give them a chance to make the type of change, the forward progress that they were looking to make, then it doesn't really matter. So that's what we're talking about on the Urban Therapy with Son show. If y'all would like to call into the show, if y'all would like to talk about this, if you would like to give your knowledge of the impact that Malcolm and Martin had, I invite you to call in. And the number to call is area code 319-527-6199. That's the number to call. I said a 319-527-6199. Yes, y'all. Word up. So we getting into this thing. DJ Coach K, my man Kareem. What's going on, my brother? My brother, Coach K. Now, that's my man right there. You think it ain't when it is. You think it won't when it is. Good to see me some you, my brother. Without a doubt. We're talking about the kind of impact that Malcolm and Martin had. So we're trying to pull back the layers of truth to see what type of impact that they really had. And try to contrast that to the type of impact that our Black leaders have now. Do we have a Martin Luther King? Do we have a Malcolm X? I don't know if we knew the type of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King that we had back then. So without us having as much of a visible, impactful leader as we had back then, it may be harder for us to speak on that. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have black leaders now or charismatic black leaders that people follow. We may not recognize them as such right now, which makes me wonder if we recognize them as such back then. I don't know. Okay. Back in the late 50s and the early 60s, late 60s for Martin Luther King, he was a nationally known figure. He was definitely recognized by the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover, and the J. Edgar Hoover boys were definitely showing him a lot of attention. Even made threats to Martin Luther King, and who knows what he did in terms of Malcolm X is concerned. But we know that both of them were on their radar. Well, who would be on the FBI's radar now? Is there a different FBI now than there was back then? You know, many of us think that all of our ancestors that were alive back in the civil rights struggle and before then, like they was just a bunch of country bumpkins or a bunch of I don't want to say jigaboos, but I want to say a bunch of party people in on the East Coast and up north. Like we was just out here, you know, like we ain't worried about this, we ain't worried about that. No, we had freedom fighters as far back as our history will allow us to study. There were always people there in our families, in our history, in our neighborhoods, in our community, fighting for our rights. What's up, Sincerely T? Sincerely T, thanks for coming on through. But yeah, we weren't all just buck dancing and trying to go along to get along. And no, we weren't all doing that. But we also may have not all been part of the civil rights struggle or the human rights struggle or the Southern Christian Leadership Council or none of that shit. So what were we doing if we weren't fighting for our freedom? Well, let's take a look at it. And you don't have to go very far to take a look at it. You know who you grew up with. You know what TV shows your parents were watching, what radio programs that they were listening to, what types of reading materials were available in your home. You know what was going on. And you knew what was going on with your neighbors and with your friends and with your other family members. You knew what they were into. Well, let me know. Were they following them? Probably not. So why do we think that so many people were following them back then? Why wouldn't we follow them? And honestly, why would we? You follow leaders if you're a good follower and if they have a message that you feel like you can use. Nowadays, like I was saying a little bit before, we may think that we don't have that type of charismatic or impactful leader like we had back in the day. But we have some people. We just we probably don't like them now. But I know in the early 90s and all through the 90s, Farrakhan was tearing shit up. He was. You want to talk about having the FBI FBI having you on your radar in the 90s with all that Million Man March stuff? Farrakhan was tearing shit up. Did he have the type of impact that a Malcolm X had? He was a friend of Malcolm X at one time. Well, let's say he was a colleague, because I don't really think he was ever his friend. But he did. He had a hell of a following in the 90s. It was Farrakhan this, Farrakhan that. He was on national TV all the time. They kept sticking a camera in his face every chance they got until he started making them pay for it. Like, y'all gonna try to keep painting me as this crazy, radical, insane, tyrannical, well, the type of leader that separates people and stuff like that. They tried to keep him, they kept trying to paint him in that light, and he kept fucking them up. You've never seen him get hype on camera, raise his voice, lose his cool, forget what he was talking about, be thrown off guard, or not seem like he was in full control of the interview. He kept fucking them up. He kept destroying the narrative that they painted for him. And he had the Million Man March. 1 million men came down to Washington, D.C. to atone for their sins in the community and in their families. Now, whatever you think about the Million Man March is whatever you think about it, but he did it. Nobody else did that. Nobody did that. Now, the civil rights struggle, or should I say the March on Washington, I think they said that it had 600,000 people there. And I remember when the Million Man March came out, how they were saying there wasn't 1 million people there. They said they counted something like 400,000. I'm like, well, we counted 1 million. But how did y'all count 1 million? The same fucking way y'all did. I know that Washington Mall was full. It was full in the first half of it, and you know how they have the back half. You know, they have the water separating the two halves. Well, it was full all the way to the back. And you can't discount the people who were milling around, who couldn't fit in the Washington Mall. So we counted 1 million. Y'all say it wasn't, we say it was. The bottom line is that's somebody of today, of the modern era, who we can say had that type of impact, respectfully, that Martin Luther King and that Malcolm X had. Malcolm X didn't have a big following. He didn't. He got his flowers in death. People started studying his ideology and started following him and started to dissect his ideology and his impact, and he had a greater impact in his death. You know, sort of like when Tupac was never part of that best rapper alive. But he was never part of that greatest rapper alive conversation in his life while he was living. Not that I'm aware of, but he definitely became part of the greatest rappers who ever lived, or the greatest rapper who ever lived in his death. There's a good chance that Malcolm X pretty much had it the same way. Sucré je toi. Sucré je toi. Sucré JTX. Thanks for coming on through. Appreciate you coming through. And Cherry Dana, Cherry Dana. It's Cinderella Day. Well, it's the woman day with famous Cinderella day. What's the right woman day with fame? What's going on day? And I see Jawaz Shabazz. Jawaz Shabazz. That's a dope name, man. Appreciate that. Like that. Jawaz Shabazz. Okay, let me see what y'all talking about. All right. Carol Chamberlain says, Muhammad Ali said it best. Why should I go and kill people who have not done anything to us? He didn't believe believe in the Vietnam War and protested against it. Yeah. And it got him pushed out of boxing for 3 years in his prime. You know what I'm saying? He would have been imagine if Muhammad Ali would have kept fighting, because he was tearing people's heads off. For him to have had to have sat out for 3 years You know, a boxer's time, man, that's a lifetime. That's retirement type of time. And when he came back, he got beat. Joe Frazier beat him. He came back and beat Joe Frazier 2 more times, but I think that's the shit that gave him the Parkinson's. Got him fucked up. But those are the kind of things that would do that they would do to us. And you know that Muhammad Ali had a very good relationship with Malcolm X. That was his man. No, he was a young boy. Malcolm X was an old head for him. Carol says Adam Clayton Powell was very instrumental in the cause, just not as out front as Dr. King. Yeah. And Adam Clayton Powell was about, he was about that action, making sure that we had jobs. Like, fighting, being on defense to ensure your safety on the streets is one thing. But Adam Clayton Powell was going into the job market and was like, nah, y'all can't be discriminating against us in the workplace. You can't have these white boys making this money and we can't make this money. Y'all can't be having these unions that only service white men and not black men. That's Adam Clayton Powell was no joke. But you talk about the impact that a Malcolm X and a Martin Luther King had, they don't want to talk about this. They don't want to talk about Adam Clayton Powell. Adam Clayton Powell, he said, they talking about Martin Luther King talking about something. I have a dream. He was like, what about I have a plan? I have a plan. He was like, yo, he knew that we weren't economically sound. And he wanted to fix that because he felt like if we could get our money up, then we could get our respect up. If we could take care of our families, then we would fare better in society. If a man can't go to work to earn a decent wage, then he can't take care of his families. Hence, he will be missing from the family. And then the black family will break down. And we look at the condition of the black family from that time back then in the 60s and look at the black family now. The same thing was going on back in the 60s as what's going on right now. Yeah, but Adam Clayton Powell had a hell of an impact, especially in New York. But not just New York. He was a national figure, but you don't hear people saying, Adam Clayton Powell was this, that, and the third and all of that. So they kind of diminish the impact that somebody like him had. And that's why we have to go back and ask our ancestors what happened. What were you doing when this was going on? Some of them, some of them reading from the same history books that you reading from, and they was there. But see, they weren't there. No presence of mind. They weren't in the moment because they weren't in the movement. But what were they moving? What were they moving towards? How were they moving? What were they doing? Cherry says, I don't come from a jigaboo line, and neither do I. But I'll tell you this, Cherry, my peoples wasn't marching in the civil rights struggle. They weren't fighting it. I don't have one relative that I'm aware of that was out there, in the struggle. And I'm going to be honest with you. But I hate to admit it. On my mom's side, they was more into, finding somebody that was light-skinned or maybe even white. Black insecurity. Now, not the men in my family, but certainly the women. The men in my uncles on my mom's side, they was with black women, real black women, from the South and all that type shit. The women, well, all of my aunts, they all married black men too. But you could kind of see what they, they wasn't freedom fighters. That's an actual fact. It's not a fact that I'm really proud of, but that doesn't mean I'm not proud of them, because I am. And it doesn't mean that they didn't know what time it was, because they did. But what are you doing about the time that you know about? That's my question. If we're going to assume or think that we've been taught that all of our black people were out there, sitting in, marching, fighting in the courts, doing whatever they needed to do out there in the community, trying to elevate our level of consciousness, well, we need to see it. So we get for our ancestors that are still alive, we need to go back and ask them, like, yo, what was up? We're not trying to indict them. We're not trying to charge them. We just want to know, what's the real story? Because when we read his story, or when we're only given the account of his story, when our story is available, well, why are we accepting that? And why are we being taught to accept that? We got the people in our stories right there. After today, I'm hoping that y'all get on the phone and start asking, like, yo, auntie, uncle, what was y'all doing? What was it? Well, from 1960 to 1975, what was up? What was we doing? Because it was a hell of a parade from 1960 to 1975. 1975, the end of the Vietnam War. Now, you know that a lot of black people were against the Vietnam War, but a lot of black people fought in the Vietnam War. We lost a generation of black males in the Vietnamese War. We over there in Southeast Asia shooting at the yellow man, while the white man is killing us, beating us, and humiliating us and discriminating us, against us right here. But when we brought up that fact, then we sound un-American. Hey. Huh? Guess what? We still doing it. We still doing it. Iraqis ain't never done nothing to you. What do you know? What do you know? Iraqis, Saudis and all that shit. They over here crown fried chickens, serving you chicken and fucking, soul food, greens and macaroni and cheese and shit. Ribs and shit. They're working at your gas station, giving you the cheaper gas. And you thinking like, yo, but that ain't name brand gas. I ain't going to them. Shit, I go to them. I don't give a fuck. Fuck out of here. I don't know what Sunoco is putting in their gas versus with I don't know, Habib's. I don't know. Jawad Shabazz says, just saw the title. Talk that shit, Playboy. That's what's up, man. Appreciate it. Carol Chamberlain says, they will never give an accurate account because they were black and we cannot peacefully gather. Plus it's unprecedented for that large of a crowd of blacks, especially black men, because we supposed to be lazy and shiftless and always trying to get away from our families. Start another family. Take care of every family except for our bloodline. You know, we just all out here just trying to get some pussy and smoke something, shoot something, you know, something, deal something, hustle something. That's all we supposed to be about. But when a million of us or 400, I don't give a fuck. Half of whatever the number accurately is, we wasn't supposed to be out there doing that. We wasn't supposed to be out there planning with each other, appreciating each other, strategizing with each other, apologizing for stepping on each other's sneakers and bumping into each other. We ain't had no choice. It was crowded out that bitch. I'm out there asleep on a tree. My tired ass just drove all night from Milwaukee to Philly and then to DC to take my baby brother and my man to the Million Man March because I wasn't going to fucking miss it no matter what. I wasn't missing that shit. Shit. Me and my mom, we drove from Milwaukee that night. And she was like, you talking about going to some Million Man March and blah, 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 blah. I said, yeah, I am. So we got to get up out of here. Your family, I love y'all. You know what I mean? I'll be back in a minute, whatever. But we got to get in this car and we got to drive back to Philly so I can get a couple of hours of sleep so I can get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and take my people to DC because we going to the Million Man March tomorrow. I don't give a fuck. And that's what happened. But I was tired, man. I missed all the speeches. I saw like the first speech, maybe the second or third. And I was like, look, man, I can't do this. Listen, I'm gonna go over here to this tree and I'm gonna chill, man. Y'all go ahead and do it. Remember, I'm right here. And I'm like, I'm hearing the speech. I'm like, yeah. That's what well, Farrakhan was like, yo, put a black dollar in the air. Put a black dollar in the air. If you black and you got a dollar, put it in the air. And then he had all the Nation of Islam people come and collect that dollar. Like, that's how you know it was the Million Man March. That's how you knew it was a million people there. Because they collected that dollar. They told everybody put a dollar in the air. They collected that dollar. I remember the fish sandwiches was good as shit, boy. Where was they from? I think they was from down south. You know, it was black business going on. It was the greatest thing to this day. I went to the Million Man March. I went to the Million Family March. I went to the Millions More. The Million Family March wasn't bad. It wasn't bad. But that damn Million Man March, that thing was off the chain. And the world didn't want that. They wanted to paint the narrative of black men shooting and killing each other, hurting each other, hating on each other. Instead, we came together to build with each other, plan together, strategize with each other, promise each other for a better us, and we did. Then people like, well, ain't nothing happened when people came home. Yes, it did. It may not have happened with your man or whatever, or in your community in the part that in a way that you could see, but I was there and I had that energy. And chicks was telling me, like, yeah, ever since these niggas then came home from this Million Man March shit, they've been on this positive shit. And they was bitching about that. Because, you know, some niggas had took some time to stop selling drugs, stop hustling negatively, stop being a part. You know, they was like, nah, man, you know, like, we gotta get this thing together. And I remember hearing chicks from other places talking about that shit. Like, now all these motherfuckers on this positive shit. Like, okay, I'm rocking with them. It was funny. It was funny to me. Ow, just bang my knee. Okay, what's up, Aqua Activated? I love you, and you know that they hate it. That's my word. Okay. Carol says, and sometimes by our own people, they just aren't woke and don't want to be woke. Yeah, you know how it is. But see, that's the majority, Carol. That's the majority. You know, and you know, people don't like it when I try to outline that. As far as I'm concerned, it's our reality. We can't advance thinking that each and every one of us sees the world the same way. Like we all down, we're all tired of the bullshit and we're all ready to go. How can you be ready to fight and you haven't been trained? Have you ever, when you were little or whatever, and you got in your first fight, did your anger get you past that? Or was it the fact that you had been fighting with your brothers and sisters and cousins and all of that stepped your game up? So when you fought somebody outside of the circle, you were ready to go. More than likely, it was the latter, unless you punch somebody or slap somebody or push somebody or kick somebody and just started wailing on them and they never fought back because they wasn't prepared. Other than that, you can't successfully expect to win a war when you haven't been trained in battle. And our people are not trained in battle. Sometimes we may have to ask ourselves, are we trained? Are we ready to fight? Beyond just the, having the mental element there where we're ready to fight. Are we physically able, ready and willing to fight? Are we mentally and emotionally prepared to get in there, stay the course? No, first of all, get in there, devise a plan and a strategy. Find a cause first. Find the cause, devise a strategy and a plan of action, and follow through. Make adjustments along the way. If we haven't trained ourselves to do that, we're just spinning our wheels. So no wonder we think that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, had everybody doing their thing. No wonder we believe that shit. Because we so busy waiting for somebody else to do it or thinking that somebody else is doing it besides ourselves. No. Make sure that y'all share this show, y'all. Make sure that y'all hit the like button. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. This is the Urban Therapy with Son show. And we are talking about the impact that Malcolm and Martin had. Now, I hope y'all didn't think I was just going to come on this show and talk about how good Malcolm and Martin was or talk about some of the negative aspects. No, this is a Today show. When we start talking about our history, we're talking about what happened in the past, what's happening today, and what's happening in the future. What's going to happen tomorrow. That's what history is. That's what history is. So we're here to teach and learn today. We're here to teach and learn today in that vein. Yeah, I believe that Martin Luther King had a hell of an impact. He was the most visible leader that we had. Who knows? I don't know how many people follow Reverend Al Sharpton. I don't follow him. I don't like him, but I sure as hell know who he is, where he is, and what he does. And he's on TV a lot, at least 4 or 5 times a week, whether it's on his own show, which comes on the weekends, or whether it's called Politics Nation, by the way. I mean, even though he's not my cup of tea, but I ain't gonna hate on the brother. His show is called Politics Nation. It comes on MSNBC, whatever. I don't fuck with him. I think he's an opportunist, and he's too his style of black leadership is too commercial for me. I ain't about that liberal bullshit. Nah. I can't fuck with that. And I never liked the way he wore his hair. Shout out to James Brown, because he said he conked his hair back then, in honor of James Brown. All right, man, whatever. The fat Al Sharpton was better than me. This skinny Al Sharpton, I'm like, I don't know about. Anyway, but a lot of people love Reverend Al Sharpton and follow him. He knows how to get thousands of people together. Malcolm X didn't have thousands of people following him, y'all. I know we think that he did, but he didn't. Remember, his last speech was in the Audubon Ballroom. Do you know how many people fit inside the Audubon Ballroom in New York? Well, let's see. Let's get Let's see. What was the occupational capacity of the Autobahn? Oh, fuck.
I pulled up some videos for you.
I gotta be faster than that. What was the occupational capacity of the Autobahn ballroom when Malcolm X spoke?
According to WordPress.com, a week after he was firebombed out of his Queens home, Black nationalist leader Malcolm X was shot to death shortly after 3 p.m. yesterday as he started to address a Washington Heights rally of some 400 of his devoted followers.
How many? Dang, how many did she say? Hold on. Okay. Black nationalist leader Malcolm X was shot to death shortly after 3 p.m. yesterday as he started to address a Washington Heights. That's Harlem. Rally of some 400 of his devoted followers. 400 people. Now, 400 people ain't nothing to sneeze at, but we're not talking about thousands of people. We're not talking about a stadium. Autobahn ballroom. Key word is ballroom. You know, and I'm not sure if he was or did fill up that place. I don't think he did. So, as far as his impact, the impact of his actions, it's spread out to millions. But as far as the people who were actively following his movement, it's hard to say. But it wasn't, you know, he wasn't ready to, listen, you got Kevin Hart and Beyonce filling up stadiums. Fuck with that. Entertainers. That's who gets millions and millions of followers. You start talking about getting free and doing better for yourself and working out the problems in your community and your family and improving our condition. That shit don't, you know, our people be worried about, oh, they trying to take away my white friends. Well, you know, like, I mean, you got to understand, I got white friends, I got black friends, I got Indian friends, I got Latino friends. I'm like, ain't nobody ask you about your fucking friends. I'll tell you one thing that all of your extra friends have that you don't have. They have some type of unity, some type of solidarity. They have some type of presence of their struggle, knowledge of themselves. Now, what about you, little Miss Rainbow Coalition? Mr. Amalgamation? What about you? Yeah. Shit. Even Martin Luther King, you know, he talked about rights for all people and all of that, but he was on that black shit. Let's keep it a buck. And yeah, Martin Luther King had a thing for white women. He did. He just did. Anybody who don't want to hear that, that's on you. Anybody who don't want to believe that, that's on you. Anybody that has a problem with that, that's on you. It doesn't take away from the fact that that nigga was on that black shit. He was fighting for, even if he wanted to be with a white woman or white women, he wanted his freedom and right to be able to do so safely. But he did have thousands of followers. And that's not to diminish. That's not to diminish his impact. I don't want to get into that. I don't want to send that message at all. I'm not trying to diminish his impact, the impact that he had in this world when he was in this world. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying to share the show like I be asking y'all to do. And I'm over here, feel like, I don't know. Maybe my mind is on some other shit. I'm not I ain't focused. I'm not focused the way I should be focused. When I be focusing. Okay. Let me see what y'all talking about. Robbie Ming says, why can't our black men come together now as they did at the Million Man March? Will it take another march for our black men to come together? It may, but it really should take the people, the men who were at the Million Man March to go back to that mindset of what they had during the Million Man March to get it popping again. See, we were supposed to come home to our communities and do the work that it took to inspire and improve our communities. It wasn't supposed to just happen like magic. You got to put the work in. But somewhere along the line, our message got murky, or our message got missed. So we got to do it again. You know, you can teach somebody something one time, but in order to train somebody, you got to do it again and again and again and again and again. And you have to keep up with innovative techniques and strategies and follow up. You know, keep abreast of any developments in your ideology. So when you see things falling down over here or diverting back to, or should I say, reverting back to the negativity of what was before, you have to counter that. Like, no. Let me get you back on the right track. Get you back on the right track. It's not like learning to ride a bike or swimming. And shit, even with riding a bike and swimming, you think there haven't been people who hadn't ridden a bike since they were very young and can't ride it now, can't barely stand. They need training wheels for damn adults. You 30 years old, you can't ride a bike? Well, I'm just saying I can't. And people who can't swim, used to be able to swim, can't swim no more. It's the difference between teaching and training. You do something with somebody for one day, you can expect a day's worth of productivity. But if you train somebody over a certain amount of time, you know that that's going to roll over, cross over. It's going to impact harder. It's going to reinforce itself. Whenever you get in trouble with something, you rely on your training in order to get you through something. You don't rely on your teaching. You rely on your training. That's why we train our soldiers in war. We don't teach them, we train them. So it becomes second nature. When this happens, your training tells you to do this. And it works. You can rely on it. So there are still men out here who still have the spirit of the Million Man March. I'm one of them. I may not be out in the streets, you know, rabble rousing and organizing marches and protests, but that's because I don't think that shit works. But I'll do my shit here. So if I can reach, excuse me, y'all. If I can reach one of y'all and y'all can reach one of y'all people or more, the work is getting done. It doesn't always have to be in front of a camera. The work gets done. It gets done the way it gets done, and it has the impact the way it has an impact. That's why we call the show The Impact That Malcolm and Martin Had. We need to identify the impact, the real impact that they had, that their movements had, because we know that it is that they had a big impact on society and on our community. But how do we contrast that to what's going on today? How do we know the impact? We need to see how real it is. How real. Okay. Aqua Activated says there is an active ingredient called emotion. Okay. Carol says at Robin, unfortunately, the crab in the barrel mentality is too strong. We are focused on self rather than all. Yeah. Robin Ming says, you see Al Sharpton all about money. He was at the George Floyd funeral. Breonna Taylor, yeah. He only takes high profile. That's the beef I have with him too, Rob. You know, he only takes high profile national or international types of cases. Or he'll take other cases when they blow up. But you know, MSNBC, they just send out, send that nigga in there, you know what I mean? Somebody just got shot and over there in St. Louis. Somebody just got killed down there in Baton Rouge. Somebody just they just killed a black man, tied him to a truck and all that shit over down in Florida. Send Al Sharpton. Send Al Sharpton. Send Al Sharpton. That's they go to. And he eating off of that. I ain't mad because he eating off of it, but I'm like, come on, man. Come on, man. That's you gonna let them do you like that? Come on. But we shouldn't be surprised because he was doing that same shit back in the Tawana Brawley shit. Tawana Brawley shit back in the 80s. So what do we expect? Aqua Activated says they use trauma bonding, starting with teaching slavery in elementary school. Big mistake. I don't really have a problem with them teaching about slavery. What I have a problem with is them teaching slavery in a non-constructive way. We were slaves. It's nothing for us to be ashamed of. Nothing. But tell the truth about slavery. Don't just teach us about slavery in terms of, you know, that's where we came from. We came from nothing, because just like today, just like yesterday, and going all the way back to slavery and before slavery, there were those of us who were trying to get us up out of slavery, physical and mental slavery. There were freedom fighters trying to rescue us among us. I'm not talking about a white man coming through, you know, to try to help the black community because he feels so. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about those amongst us who were fighting to get away, fighting to get to freedom, fighting to get to a place where they could be free men, women, and children and build lives for themselves. That's how they were back then, and they got overshadowed back then. That's how they are now, and they get overshadowed by people now. So no, I don't mind slavery being taught. I mind slavery being mistaught. That's the biggest problem. Our problem is not our history. Our problem is the misinterpretation of history. We have too much his story and not enough of our story or the real story. And because many of us could not read and write, it's hard for us to get accurate accounts of what happened. It's a problem. It's a major problem. But we're still here. And while we're still here, that means that we still have a chance. And it's up to you and I and all of us that we come in contact with to make sure that we don't waste waste the opportunities that we have to do better. And we will do better. So let me see what else I was saying. Robbie Ming says Martin Luther King, I believe, had a vision. He definitely had a vision. He was successful. Yeah, he was. You can't say that he wasn't. Anybody who tries to say that he wasn't successful is wrong. He was very successful. His message is still resonating today. But unfortunately, fortunately, I'm going to say, not the I have a dream message, because we didn't need that. But the other messages that he sent are still here. But we have to learn those messages. Same thing with Malcolm X. I wonder if Malcolm X would have lived, and I hate to say this, man, and I know y'all going to get on me about this, but with the way that Malcolm X was going, I wonder if Malcolm X was even going to be on that black shit, for very much longer. When he made Hajj, in Mecca, he saw a lot of white Muslims, and his conversation about white people was starting to evolve to a little bit more liberal stance. Who knows how far it would have gotten? You know what I mean? Would it have been a situation? Would it have been a situation by 1970 or 1975 where Malcolm X was actually having white people march beside black people? Remember, he still had a lot of energy from the Nation of Islam and the teachings of the Nation of Islam when he was fighting for human rights on his own platform. But you also have to consider his relationship with white people before he was incarcerated and exposed to the Nation of Islam in jail. We have to keep those things in mind also, So, Malcolm X had white women. He was about that life. But we don't know where it was going. And I'm not saying that that's where he was going with it. What I'm saying is, we don't know. But I wonder. Shirley Sherrill, the world's most precious and greatest pearl in the world.
90 seconds.
Shirley Sherrill, the world's most precious and greatest pearl in the world. Now, we ain't ending it right now. I owe y'all some. Oh, shit. I ain't know we had a call on the line. My bad. My bad to the bones. Hold on. I'm gonna take your call. I'm gonna read the rest of these comments, and then I'm gonna take the caller. All right. Carol Chamberlain says the correct story of slavery had been taught. It may have been better instead of being portrayed as docile, timid, etc. Go along to get along. There were revolutionaries in slavery times. Yes, there were. Yes, the fuck there were. Just like they are now. There were revolutionaries before slavery. How about that? They have you thinking that the Native Americans over here just laid down for the white man. They didn't. I know them Seminole Indians didn't. Them damn Apaches didn't. Even the Sioux. No. The Cherokee didn't. All right. Aqua Activated says, I believe I've led my people into a burning house. A famous quote of Martin Luther King. What do you think he meant? He really started to show remorse about the whole nonviolent thing, because when you are dealing with somebody who is nothing but violent, and you are trying to rely on those who aren't as violent to protect you from the people who are nothing but violent, and you are telling your people to remain nonviolent, what's going to happen? your message is gonna get lost because there ain't gonna be nobody there to relay it. Now people are scared to fight. After they killed everybody that would fight, now the only thing that's left are the people who are afraid to fight. Like, now I see what happened to everybody else. Now nonviolence is my only option. That's it. Like, I don't have nothing else. All right, Cherry says, I don't believe in teaching children, especially elementary school children, about slavery without the full story. But most white women stop there when it comes to teaching our history. We need to watch ourselves. You know what? You're probably right. I wasn't educated by white teachers, though. It's a fact that I'm so fucking proud of. My social studies teachers were not white. They were black. Till I got to high school. But that was American history, world history, and American history. So different. But yeah, I was educated in the Philadelphia public school system, but I was educated by black teachers who gave up the real. They gave it up. They knew how far to go with it, but they planted them seeds. Like, yo, you know what kind of world this is out here? You know what I mean? These little black children, y'all got to get your shit together. It starts here. But I know what you mean. Aqua Activated says, I think it should be taught in high school. Okay. Aqua Activated also says the fight would be different. The wall would be different. I'm just saying. I hear you. All right. We have a caller on the line. Caller with the last number is 8658. Welcome to the Urban Therapy with Sun show. I want to thank you first and foremost for holding on all that time. But I'm so glad you're here. What's on your mind this afternoon?
Yeah, two things. How are you?
Feeling like a real man should.
Well, that's a good thing. I do agree with you, and I do agree with some of the comments being made about the teaching of slavery in school.
Mm-hmm.
However, my opinion, only mine, and it only matters to me, is that I, like you, was brought up in the public school system. I was fortunate enough to have what we would call, quote unquote, hippie social studies teachers. Those teachers wanted to put the truth out there. They were all about love, free love, that kind of stuff. And they just wanted to put the truth out there.
Mm-hmm.
I also spent a lot of time in a place in Center City. There was a bunch of hippies. I thought I wanted to be a hippie, that kind of stuff. And I interacted with a lot of white people. But they were on that free love stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was embraced. I just feel like if each one reaches one, each one will teach one.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Black history should start in the home. I have collected plenty of books. I have grandchildren, I have great-grandchildren, and I've collected various books throughout my life that I have read, that I have preserved to pass on to them. One of my granddaughters was fortunate enough to meet Representative John Lewis while she was in school a couple of years before he died.
Okay.
The only thing he didn't get out of that was to get a picture taken with him, because they made the kids give up their phones so that they couldn't take pictures. I don't believe that was Mr. Lewis's thing. I think it was the school's thing.
Mm-hmm.
But she was so excited because she had read about him. We had talked about him, that she got her phone back. When she got it back, the first call she made was to me. Mama, guess who was at our school today? And I'm like, okay, who? And when she told me, it actually brought tears to my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
She got a chance to see somebody that I never got a chance to see except for on television.
I hear that.
I mean, that was an experience to last her a lifetime. And I hope she passes it on to her thing about thinking that all slaves were docile and timid. No, not just the Harriet Tubman. Can't think, it was right on the tip of my tongue. The guy here, right here in Philadelphia, there's a plaque that in South Philly that marks him. Octavius something, I can't remember the last name. Where he did a lot. Right in the city of Philadelphia, in the city of brotherly love, this man was killed because of his beliefs and his ability to go out and lash out against the injustices being done to Black people right here in the city of Philadelphia. I mean, you've got a lot of revolutionaries. But then you made the comment earlier in the show that, you know, maybe I mistook it, but it seemed as though Blacks did not, you know, you said something about in your family there were no Black revolutionaries. You have to understand, I know in my family there were a couple, but they didn't really do anything because fear had been instilled in them. When you grow up in the South and you see lynchings, you see a house being firebombed, people dragged out. They have now instilled fear in you. So now you're afraid to speak up. I don't want to believe that our people are just docile. It takes a strong person to resist that and to put themselves on the front line. True. Everybody ain't built like that.
Okay, now what I was trying to say was this. It's not that nobody in my family was a revolutionary. They weren't out there following a Malcolm X or a Martin Luther King. So when I talk about the impact that a Malcolm and a Martin had, if we didn't live during those times, we would think that it almost seemed they almost make it seem like all Black people were on that tip. You understand what I'm saying? Like we were all following them, like we were all behind them and all of that. And most of us weren't. Most of us were just living our lives as we were living them, however that was. You know what I'm saying?
Most of us were afraid. Most of us were afraid. I grew up in a house. My parent was older. And I grew up in a time when they had the riots on Columbia Avenue in Philadelphia. You know, I grew up in a time where there was a young man killed on Susquehanna Avenue near 20th Street in North Philadelphia. They locked down my whole neighborhood. The police did. And what did we do? We tore up the few shops that we had left on Susquehanna Avenue. Same thing with Columbia Avenue. We were destroying everything in our own neighborhood. We wouldn't go out of our neighborhood to protest. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
We tore up where we live. And now, a lot of us are feeling the effects of it or seeing the effects of it, and we're wondering why. And just like now, with the George Floyd case, Breonna Taylor, all the rest of them, Eric Garner, and all of them, when you go into your own communities and you destroy your community, what does that get you? A dog won't eat where he shit, okay?
Right.
If you ever had a pet, the dog won't eat where he shits. Okay? Why shit on your own? That's my thing. I came up in the era of Elijah Muhammad. I know about Malcolm X. I know about Farrakhan. And I know where the break was. And you were correct. When Malcolm went to Mecca, he did start interacting with Muslims that were non-Black. They weren't just white people, they were Muslims. Right. But we in the Black community, because under Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we were taught that anything white was a devil. They were blue-eyed devils.
Right.
But you had white Muslims.
Right.
They weren't just here in the United States.
Right.
That was the break-off.
Yeah.
With Malcolm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it opened his eyes when he went to Mecca.
Mm-hmm.
that all the teachings that he followed of Elijah Muhammad, all of it wasn't necessarily true.
Yeah.
So, how do you think, or let me put it this way, why do you think they killed Malcolm?
Well, you know, when I think about that time, if you really think about it, it's hard for us to even fathom not knowing that there are white Muslims around the world. You know what I'm saying?
Because we were taught not to believe that.
But check this out though, Carol. Even if we were taught not to believe that, we all have family members that toured overseas. They know that
Elijah Muhammad's vision, and this, I mean, no disrespect to this man, not at all. I was a follower of Elijah Muhammad.
Right.
Okay. However, his vision was self-centered, so to speak. He was in that box. You know, I came up in the era of Sam Christian, Jolly Green Giant, all of them. Knew some of them personally.
Okay.
Okay? They were gangsters. That was acceptable in the mosque.
Okay.
Okay? That was acceptable in mosque number 12 because they were bringing in money. Them boys were selling drugs like nothing. But Elijah Muhammad had no problem with that.
Yeah. Wait.
When he died, and Wallace Dean, his son, realized that what Malcolm was preaching all those years ago was true. There are white Muslims. When Wallace Dean opened the doors of the mosque to the white Muslims, the Pakistani Muslims, you know, it became a problem. Farrakhan, what did he do? He struck out against Wallace Dean. I ain't telling you what I heard, I'm telling you what I lived.
It happened.
Yeah.
So yeah,
just don't pay attention.
You know,
a lot of stuff.
He took advantage. He basically what Elijah Muhammad did was what most preachers in religion do. They find people at their most vulnerable points in their lives, and they take advantage of them for monetary gain. They sell in spirituality in exchange for money. And you know, I'm not going to say that he didn't do any great things because he got black businesses pumping. He did. So you know, we're talking about the impact that Malcolm and Martin had. You know, we almost can't do that without talking about the impact that Elijah Muhammad had. It may be more far-reaching than Malcolm and Martin, but nonetheless, he wasn't as popular because with him having the ministers of information like what Malcolm X was and like what Farrakhan had become after him, you know, they were pretty much the mouthpiece, you know, when Elijah Muhammad wasn't speaking as much. And so he had Malcolm X speaking for the Nation of Islam, and then Farrakhan speaking for the Nation of Islam after that. And so if you weren't actively into those realms and knowing what those people were doing, you know, you're almost not in the moment the same way as a person who wasn't born during those times would be. You know what I mean? So you kind of have to take the account that somebody else was giving you. But I'll say this. As far as I'm going back to what we were talking about as far as people being revolutionaries and things like that. If you look at today's society and the way we are with our people, you know, we can say that some people back then were afraid or they were just misinformed, but we have to say that right now. You know, because of the condition that we are in, because of slavery and the mental slavery that exists now, we have to take into consideration that our people have been conditioned to conform and to really just want to get to a place where all people can be equal and as one. You know what I mean? Like for us to even think about or talk about forgiving the faction that is responsible for our condition and to make excuses for it, it sounds ridiculous, but it's our reality. And there are more of those than it is of our freedom fighting, justice wanting asses. There's just more of them. So whenever we try to leave them behind, we have to realize we can't get nowhere without them. We got to raise them up. We have to elevate them because they are the majority. If you broke the pie down, us revolutionaries, like me and you, Carol, we might be like, I mean, or whoever you are, we might be like, out of 100%, there are at least 90% of us who are just out here hoping that things get better, hoping that somebody does something to make things better, whatever better means. But I'll say that better to them just means that we can all interact with each other, that we won't get kicked out of white establishments because we're black. I mean, that's honestly what it means to them. And that's what it is. Mm-hmm, for the 5%, for 5%, those are like the overzealous super revolutionaries that always talking about fighting, always talking about this, that, and the third, who honestly at times have their message messed up because they are a little too aggressive. You know what I'm saying? And honest, and they practice so much separation in their ideology that they make it hard for anybody to follow them. Then you have our 5%, people like me and you, who can get along with white people and all of that shit. But at the end of the day, we like, look, my people's come to fuck first. And if you ever put me in a position where you'll test that, you'll see it. Like, but we're not the ones out there on the front, on those types of front lines. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that we're not on the front lines, but we're not on those visible front lines, rabble rousing, collecting money and saying what we have to build and all of that. We're more like, taking care of the people that we can actually reach, touch, hear, impact, and doing what we can do there. You know what I'm saying? So
many people that are calling in or listening in today, they're of that same mentality.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They're on the same level as you and I.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at the comments and I can tell people that are watching this show today are into this.
Mm-hmm.
We all know that the only way it's ever going to change is that even though we may be quote unquote the quiet bunch, but everyone on here that I see has a rebellious nature.
Mm-hmm.
We're all not cut out to stand on the front lines to do that. But if you got to work behind the scenes to do what you got to do to get it done, that's what counts.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a person who's listening to this today, the comparison or not even a comparison, but the kind of impact that you gave the show's title that Martin and Malcolm had. Okay, I don't think there's anybody listening that doesn't recognize that. I really don't.
Well, not if they still listening, because this ain't an easy listen for an hour and a half. You know what I'm saying? So if you hang in here, you ain't gonna hang out and hate for no hour. That's for sure. You know what I mean? Hating gets taken. Hating takes. Yeah. Yeah. You gotta get your hate over with quick.
Yeah. You do it quickly and you're out. But I just so agree with all the comments. I do add my own little flavor to it, but hey, that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was always, out of all of my parents' children, being the youngest, I endured the worst of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the one who was always out on the front. I'm the one who, if I see a neighbor or I see a kid that I grew up with, and I don't even have to know the kid, if he gets beat up, I'm going to go help him.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean?
I do.
And that's the way I am. I'm always for the so-called downtrodden.
Yeah.
Which I really think is a horrible thing to say about anybody.
Right.
But I'm that one that wants equal justice for everybody. I don't care if you're polka dot with green stripes, okay?
Right.
You should be treated the same as anybody else.
Yeah. In a good way.
You know, in a good way.
Yeah.
You know, in a good way. We as Blacks deserve, see, here's the thing about Black people. They look at some Black people, I'm not going to generalize. Some of them feel that if they're allowed to go to, let's just say off the top of my head, McCormick and Smith's downtown to eat, I've arrived.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't arrived.
Mm-hmm.
My green money spent just like your white green money.
That's right.
Okay, it's all green.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that doesn't make me better than the neighbor down the street who can't afford to take her kids to McDonald's because I can go sit in McCormick and Smith.
Right.
That's the mentality we have to get rid of.
Yeah.
Stop hating on each other. It's the hate mentality. We have been taught so long and fought so hard to get from under it, but there's still people out there preaching it. And it's not just the white people. Open your eyes, people. It's some of us.
It is. It is, because we look for that validation. And as long as we're looking for the validation of our oppressors, how are we ever going to get any farther? It doesn't work that way. I mean, that don't sound. Yeah.
One and one make two to me.
Yeah, it shouldn't be that hard. It really shouldn't. But listen, we gotta get up. Well, I appreciate your 2 cents.
I just had to put this in there.
Your 2 cents was worth $1 million. I know I paid for it, but I appreciate you coming on here and giving the show some clarity today. I really do. Once again, you've done it again, and you do it often. Whoever, I mean, you sound familiar, but I mean, you never know. But
I just want us to open our eyes to what's really out here.
Without a doubt,
everyone here, just about everybody on this panel has children.
Mm-hmm.
And when we leave this world, who's going to lead us?
That's
our
right.
Children. We need to give them the tools to lead with.
I agree.
That's all I'm saying.
I
gotta go. I need to finish cooking my dinner.
All right, that's what's up. I'll holler back at you. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Strong caller there. Strong caller. Extremely strong. Appreciate it. Appreciate it mucho. Appreciate that insight. Appreciate that revolutionary, we gonna get it done one way or another spirit. That's what we need more of. You know what I'm saying? Listen, man, so many times with our people, we concentrate on the physical things. Like we need money for this, or we do a coat drive or give away turkeys and all that. All of that's fine. But if we're not doing the things that will change our mind state, then we're not doing anything. I'm not saying that anything is wrong with giving away things. But what we need to give away more than anything else is a chance to think better so we can do better. That's what we need. So I appreciate you coming on, caller, for enlightening us and telling us what happened from your own eyes as you saw it. Because we're not going to, like what she was telling us about when she was in the mosque and who showed up and who contributed. We're not going to get that in the history books. We ain't getting that. That's that underground information. That's why we have to go back to our ancestors and ask them what happened. Because that's the only way we ever going to know the real. They ain't got no reason to lie to us. Think about it. What reason would they have to lie? They don't have no reason to lie. All right, y'all. But yeah, we can get our history. We can get our history lessons for free. We can get our education, the education that will actually help us for free. All we have to do is set it up and do it for each other. Give us the real information. The information is the key. That is the key to our freedom. That is the actual key to the lock of our freedom. All right, we have some birthday shout outs to do. Some people were born on this glorious May 16th, and they deserve to be acknowledged. So let's go about our business of acknowledging them and making them feel special because they are special because they are special because they are S-P-E-C-I-A-L. They get the R-E-S-P-E-C-T. They are S-P-E-C-I-A-L. They get the R-E-S-P-E-C-T. They are S-P-E-C-I-A-L. They get the R-E-S-P-E-C-T. They get number one out the box. Antoinette Taylor, happy birthday to you. And also Charlotte Reed, turning 49 years old today. And Tori Thompson turning, well, that's too old for me to say. And that's not how old she is. So LaJoya Green, happy birthday to you, turning 30 years old today. That's a milestone. That's my word. You are fully grown. And Jennifer Slightwork, turning 31 years old today. Happy birthday to you. And Yajaneri Lopez turned at 40 years old today. She got the 40 in the hand and the 40. Bow, 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 bow. What's up now? Yeah, do the damn thing. And Woo Miller, happy birthday to you, Woo. And Tamoy Johnson turning 41 years old today. And Melendez, Scene Melendez turning 43 years old today. And April Scherer, happy birthday to you, turning 45 years. Bow, 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 bow. Yeah. And Wadia Shahida Thompson turning 39 years old today. And Monica Casey, happy birthday to you and Sheba Baby, 31 years old. Sheba Baby Jones turning 31 years old today. And last but not least, my girl, Nichelle Seiko, who's actually the ex-wife of my man, Lawrence Seiko. Happy birthday to you, Shelly Shell, turning 53 years old today. I want to say happy birthday to all of you. And anyone else out there who shares this birthday on this glorious May 16th, anywhere out there in the world, worldwide, internationally, and universally. All of y'all go ahead and turn up, but don't turn up too loud. Just turn up loud enough so everybody can hear you. Rock out, rock on it to the damn, to rock out, rock on it to the damn, rock out, rock on it, do the damn thing. You do your thing, y'all. Represent the queens and kings. You do your thing, y'all. Represent the queens and kings. Good things happen to those who wait. Great things happen to those who grind, and anything can happen to those who go for theirs. So go hard, go for yours, and remember, man, listen, the impact that Martin and Malcolm had is unprecedented. We will never know how far-reaching their impact had, not just in the United States, but all over the world. But all over the United States and all over the world, we know that people know people like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, even if they don't know anything about our real struggle and that continues to this day. Who will be our next Malcolm and Martin? And do they have to be a Malcolm and a Martin in order to have the type of impact that will propel us to an elevation, a mental, emotional, and physical elevation that will improve our condition as a people and get us to plan, strategize, unite, follow through, do it over again, and get our babies where we want them to be, get our people where we need them to be? Well, we'll just have to just wait and see. But don't think that you have to be a Malcolm and a Martin in order to make your own impact. All you have to do is learn and teach and learn and teach and learn and teach and learn. I want to thank y'all for coming through and checking out this show today. For those of y'all who are left, please make sure that you share the show. Make sure that you like the show. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. We will be back with the Daily Go Get It Business Show tomorrow night, 7 p.m. So I'll see you there. Y'all have a wonderful Sunday. Thank you for coming through and checking out the Urban Therapy with Sun show. I hope y'all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed broadcasting it. So with that being said, okay, for my blog talkers, let me get you on up out of here. Holla back, holla, peace. And for my Instagrammers, Five Slam Jam, I say peace, y'all. I get back now. And for my YouTubers, y'all know what it is. Y'all know how we do, and you know how I go. Peace to you. Have a great Sunday. Be safe, y'all. Be safe in your night.